guys, and thank you so much for having me. I'm the sort of guy that can talk about video and video marketing and video storytelling forever, but I appreciate that everyone's really, really busy. So I've condensed all the key points of what I normally talk about into a short, it was a 30-minute conversation, chat and conversation, but we'll try and get it done a bit quicker for you. What I want you to leave with today are actionable points that you can actually leave today armed with just your phone and be delivering videos that are going to bring you business. It was really interesting yesterday. I'll just share my screen. Yesterday, I was at a local real estate agency, and oh, now it's asking for my preference. Yes, that's okay. Why is it doing this? Sorry. It's not playing. Hold on, why isn't it playing? Sorry, it's got preferences. This is really not normal. It was working before I shared it. All right, can we see it yet? No. No, can't see it?
Not yet.
Damn. It's asking me to quit. So anyway, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It wants to do an update. Of course it wants to do an update. So anyway, we'll just talk through it and you'll get the point. We won't need to look at my pretty slides. They're not that pretty anyway. So even yesterday, just to get onto the point, is that yesterday I was at a local real estate agency, and a lot of the older real estate agents in that business were really resistant to doing video. They were still wanting to just spend money on local services, billboards, the old school way. And I made everyone in the business just go to a different part of the office and record a 30-second video on the update of the market, particularly in terms of interest rates. They came back in, they played them, and then I made them all post them onto Facebook, just straight up post them. And they're all like, oh, I don't look right. I didn't get my audio right. I wasn't using the best camera. I wasn't in the best office, blah, blah, blah. And they came up with every excuse in the world of why they shouldn't be using video. By the end of the day, those videos have brought in the business 4 appraisals, 4 visits to houses. Now that's a significant change just by picking up your phone, even if it's your old iPhone 5, picking up and talking about it and doing it. And that's with no strategy, no storytelling skills, no science behind what actually has to happen in the human psyche for it to work, for you to actually trigger people to act. And Brendan mentioned earlier before that he and I had crossed paths at Channel 7, and that is my background. Normally you'd have a slide of me looking like a TV journalist up on your screen right now. I worked for Channel 7 since the year 2000 through to 2013. Prior to that, I was also a journalist in regional Victoria. I only ever wanted to be a journalist. And the one thing people used to say to me was, you know, oh, you want to be the next Eddie Maguire, you want to be this, you want to be that, you want to read the news. I never wanted to do any of that. All I wanted to do was tell people stories. What we've entered into now in the current era is that we're getting business converging with stories as a way of creating customers. That's the era that we're in now. TV was a passive medium where you'd get there and tell stories, and people would sit on their couches and they would just absorb the stories you're giving. Social media has now made it more interactive, so we get more data on the input of the stories. And I started to notice this back in about 2009 when I was creating stories with basically an unlimited budget and an unlimited amount of resources. If you talk about the cameraman that I had, well, he would have been easily on 120 grand a year. His camera would have been worth 100 grand a year. I had access to a link truck that could allow me to tell stories from anywhere on the planet that was worth close to $1 million. Yet here were these kids on YouTube with just their dad's handycam and no production experience, telling stories of the same length as mine, 3 to 4 minutes, and getting millions of views. Now, my audience back then, Channel 7 was getting in prime time close to 1 million views. So we were about level par. Now it's shifted completely. The kids are getting multi-million views. Mainstream media is now shows like the 6 o'clock news and the current affair. They're down around the 200, 300,000 viewers. So this is where the world's going. But what those kids taught me on YouTube back in 2009, and it took me nearly 6 or 7 years to actually work it out. That's what I ended up doing, going and just researching viral content, was that they taught me that production quality doesn't matter. In fact, bad production quality can enhance your experience because it allows your viewer to get a look at the real you. Storytelling and storytelling loops are key. The anticipation, the build up, the way that you draw someone in, and then the key to bringing them into action. They're the things that you want to be working on. So just let me go through this slide deck. Can you see that slide deck now? Hello?
No, not yet.
You can't see it? Damn, it's my whole screen. This is really frustrating me. I wish I could just start it again, but we'll push through. So where I sit on this, and back in 2013, I left Channel 7 and I basically set myself my own PhD. And that was to work out, why do people share content? Because I could see, looking at social media, and I studied university I studied psychology and marketing at university. I could see that what was going to become the power in terms of video marketing and in terms of marketing in general was, it was all going to be based on the reaction you could get from someone. The data points that make your content successful over someone else is based on how much data you're helping the platforms gather. Now, the platforms are being greedy about it, but they're pretty open about it too. They want you on social media creating content that triggers people to take action so that they can gather the data and put another pixel into the photo of the people who are online. They're building profiles of everybody, and every time you interact, it just adds another pixel to the picture. And it's the same with your customers. The more pixels you can build in your customers by creating content and interacting, the more accurate and the more successful and the bigger return on investment you'll get on your content. Now, if you're into sales funnels, and I'm sure all of you are into sales funnel, video sits at the top of your sales funnel. It's the premium content for one reason, is that it drives more data collection for the platforms. If you can get someone to even watch 3 to 5 seconds of your video on Facebook, then the ad platform allows you to retarget them whenever you want with whatever offer you have. So the main aim in your business, if you're wanting to use video marketing and storytelling, is just get someone to engage with one of your videos. They don't even have to click like, share, or anything like that. They just have to stop and watch for 5 seconds, and then you've got access to them forever. Sound good? Would you like to be able to do that? Like, we're just walking down the main street of Box Hill and say, hey, you stopped and looked at my shirt for 5 seconds, and now I can sell you anything I want, whenever I want, all the time. Well, that's what Facebook allows you to do if you put video at the top of your sales funnel. Twitter's the same. Instagram and Facebook are the same company. YouTube's similar, a little bit more expensive, a little bit different, but essentially everyone's working to the Facebook model. So we all now understand that we've got to get video at the top of your sales funnel because it allows that retargeting. And what we see in social media marketing at the moment is you never actually get sales from your initial impact. I can create the greatest video of all time and I can get a whole lot of people watching it, but very rarely through a great video do you get people just banging to buy. The sales actually happens in the retargeting. So there's a whole lot of people, and I know you're probably all aware of Gary Vaynerchuk and the way that he talks, and he talks about his jab, 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 right hook. It's almost that model exactly. He nailed it in that sequence that he drew, is that you want to get them in and get them viewing. That's one sort of video. And then the video for selling is different. So you want to get those views and then hit them with a sale in retargeting. Now, Facebook loves retargeting because it means it can be more accurate. When it comes to video marketing, what do you think is and you can either let me know this verbally or leave it in the chat. What's the first thing you think about when you're going to make a video for your business? What's your first consideration?
Who's your audience?
Your audience, right?
Yeah.
That is the common belief. and I really appreciate, Catherine, your answer, but I'm going to disagree with you respectfully. And this is the problem. Traditional marketing tells us that we need to focus on our customer. We need to focus on our audience who can then become our customer. And that makes real common sense in traditional marketing. When you've only got 30 seconds on a really expensive TV slot to grab someone's attention and trigger them to take an action, buy, search you online, look you up, remember you, all these things take calories. They all take time for the brain to do. That's the first thing you'd think about. But in a modern world, social media has flipped it. The brands no longer have the power. They no longer can interrupt your television viewing. The viewer has the power, we think, but it doesn't. The platform has the power. So your first consideration now is you've got to think about what is it that the platforms want? What is it that Facebook wants from you to make it viable for them? Now, I've got a slide up here at the moment, which I'll share with you. So what we've really got to do is the platforms hold the power. They are the gatekeepers to your audience. Now, here's the thing. If you can give the platforms what they want, in return, they'll give you the reach and the exposure that you want. There's no doubt in anyone's mind, if you've got any understanding of social media, what Facebook is in the business of. Facebook is in the business of making money. Facebook wants to make money. They're not there to connect the world and make the world a closer place like their cat's cry is. They've been valued at $35 billion. That's what they floated for on the stock exchange. They've got to get that money back. They're a highly driven, profit-driven business. But they've got one problem. They're carrying too many low-paid ads. Now, what's the problem that Facebook's facing if they've got too many low-paid ads, but they're a highly profit-driven business? The problem that they're facing is that they don't have enough quality content to run their ads on. Facebook only runs ad in news feeds either side of content. Maybe every third post is a sponsored post in your news feed. Have a look at it. You can tell whether you're highly targeted, medium targeted, or low targeted based on the gap between each sponsored post. So after this, go and have a look at your Facebook feed, slide through and count your sponsored posts. You can tell whether they've got a lot of data on you or not. The more data, the more ads. So what you've got to start looking at is, how do I help Facebook make more money? The way that you help Facebook make more money is you make more content that allows them to carry more ads. And then all of a sudden it makes business sense that they're going to look after you because you're helping them make more money. It's no different to YouTube. YouTube only allows people who get a certain amount of views be part of their ad partner program. So it's about, how do you do it? Well, you've got to start creating more content. Now, the Facebook algorithm, you've got to understand that first. So we'll get into the algorithm. How do you make the type of content that they're going to be happy to run ads on? The first thing that they do, and they changed the algorithm in July this year, they change it probably every 3 or 4 months because they're just trying to stay in front of the marketers. They're trying to stay in front of the people who are playing the game. So in July, they changed their algorithm and they judge your content based on these 4 things, really. On the inventory. How much other content do they have at the time that you're posting your content? Just think about that for a second. Inventory. How much content do they have at the time that you're posting your content? Who here has read an article online that talks about the best time to post your content on social media? You all read those articles? And what times do they say?
Usually early evening, I think.
Yeah, 100%. They say the best time to post your content on social media is when the most amount of people are on social media, which is prime time. But in the research that I did and my company did over 5 years, is that what we found is that when everyone is on social media also means that that's when everyone is also posting their content on social media, and Facebook doesn't have a problem in that period because they've got so much content, they can serve all the ads that people are paying for. So you just become one of many if you're posting in the peak times. So we tested it and we went back and we started posting stuff at around 5 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, what they traditionally like to call women's daytime. Low periods. We looked at when people were off. So 1 o'clock and 1:30 in the afternoon is really interesting because that's when most people go back to work and they put their phones down because they've just spent the last hour on their phones at lunchtime. And what we found is by posting in the low traffic times is that Facebook still had all these people paying for ads, because when you book an ad campaign, you've got, you're booking for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So they're still trying to get their ads away and make money. They still want to make money at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you post your content there, they go, oh, here's a piece of content that we can serve across a whole lot more people so that we can make money. But the reward for you as the content creator is that you get more reach and exposure. Does that make sense? Help Facebook make money and they will help you get exposure. And all the platforms follow it. The next thing they judge you on is how people react. I think that's pretty well understood. If you can get people to like and comment and not just be passive, then that works. Then how they rank you. So are you a reputable? Are you a good client? Has your credit card defaulted in your ads? And do you have an overall clean history? Has anyone ever complained about you? A big problem that a lot of people suffer from is that they mix their social media marketing and their social life together. Particularly in the last couple of weeks with the US election, a lot of people have been causing a lot of damage to how the algorithm ranks them, because the social media platforms at the moment are so skewed away from Donald Trump that anyone who's supporting Donald Trump is we're actually seeing a reduction in their edge rank. And that's considered quite unfair, because everyone should have the freedom of an opinion, but the social media platforms aren't playing by the rules that other media that's come before it has to. So you've got to be really careful of not to mix your business with your pleasure on Facebook. If you need to, just go and set up a different account that your mates know is yours, completely separate to your ad manager, completely separate to everything, and keep your business separate from yourself. But in doing so, still keep it you and your personalized account for your business, because you've got to humanize it. Make your mate's account some funny name that only they know and is completely unrelated to your business. So there's a couple of ways that they rank content, and there's some new significant changes. If someone shares your content over Messenger, now everyone knows what Messenger is. It's the Facebook messaging thing. Now, why would Facebook be giving you greater reach and rankings because you share someone's content over Messenger? The reason is because Messenger is essentially Facebook's version of messages and SMS. It allows them to then grab more data because they monitor conversations. They want people talking on there. It's why they bought WhatsApp, so that they can monitor all the conversations. If you share content over Messenger, then the people within Messenger are going to then watch it, and it just gets more people using Messenger, and you're helping Facebook grow its own messaging business. It's a business decision. So they skew the algorithm to help their own business grow. Multiple replies and comments on videos. Now, this is really key on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really interesting. If you pop videos onto LinkedIn, you'll notice, has anyone here noticed that you've had some videos really go sky high on LinkedIn and others just fall flat? I bet you if you go back to those ones that go sky high on LinkedIn and you look in the comments, you've broken what's called, they call it an invisible barrier, but it's about 20 comments and responses. So that's comments and responses together, 10 comments, 10 responses. If you can break through that, that's almost like the testing ground for content on LinkedIn. And they go, oh, that's great. We're getting a lot of interaction here. We'll send that one out. So if you've got a LinkedIn account, you're posting videos on LinkedIn, make sure you respond to people's comments and not just say, hey, thanks for watching, but engage them in a conversation and say, thanks for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed it. What was your favorite bit? Or I see that you're in this industry. What's your take on it? You've really got to start the conversation in LinkedIn. It's where Facebook pages were back in about 2016. And the reason why is because LinkedIn stole or hired Facebook's video team. They actually took their top 7 engineers at the start of the year. So LinkedIn's starting to skew more like how Facebook was, and the algorithm influences are coming from that engineering team. So it's all about the conversation and the chat. So you've got to spark those conversations, really stick fat on your LinkedIn and get those comments going, and even go back to old videos and see if you can start conversations. Say, hey, a week after you like this one, what do you think of it now? Has it changed you? Has it helped you? So get those conversations going. Comment and liking also works. Now, story type is the next thing. So this is the next thing they've put in the algorithm. Facebook knows if people are watching, and LinkedIn does, and YouTube. They all know if someone's watching. But here's what they have the ability to do now with the algorithm, is that they can watch the videos. The AI can watch your videos and tell whether you are including story types and story elements. Now, story frameworks are famous. They're time tested. Humans have been telling stories since before they had farms. So the algorithms know 7 to 8 top story frameworks and whether you're using them. And if you're using them, then they're going to promote your stuff even further, because story frameworks work with the human brain. Story frameworks block out distractions, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So you've got to start getting up to scratch on your story frameworks. And I've got one that I can share with you later. I'll put in the chat and you can just go and download it for free. It's really simple. It's called the 3-Act Play, and it really is the most successful story framework out there, but it's just so easy. People overlook it because they think it's just nothing to it because it's too simple, but it works. Then we get to how do the interactions versus passive interactions work on, particularly on Facebook. And I focus on Facebook because they're the leader of the pack and everyone follows. Now, in days gone by, people watching or hovering over your video was a positive influence on your edge rank. Now, if you don't know what edge rank is, it's how Facebook ranks you. Everyone has one, and it's always evolving. They measure it every hour, every 24 hours, every week, every month. That's how they do it. Now, originally, viewing was good. If people watched your videos, it was great. If people clicked on your links, it was great. They're now considered passive or neutral interactions. So people viewing, watching, and clicking on your videos gets you no greater advantage on your edge rank. Just keeps you flat, neutral. What they really want is reacting, sharing, and commenting. They're called active and positive interactions. So when you're making your content, you've really got to start thinking about, what can I put into this video, or what can I say, or what story can I tell that's going to trigger someone to have to leave a comment? What's going to trigger someone to share this? And I'm talking about going beyond, hey, don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to share, like this post. But that's just old hat now. People are used to it. How do you get people to react? Set up a vote. You know, if you've got, Paul, if you've got promotional products, sit there and say, hey, do you guys like this red or this orange? Leave a smiley emoji for red, leave a star for orange. Get people interacting in your chat. Involve them, because it's actions over consumption now. That's a key point. Write that down. I've got it written on my door when I walk into my office. Actions over consumption. And that's key for a lot of things. A lot of people sit there and go, I'm going to do videos, and then they sit there and they watch hours and hours and hours of videos. But the key is, consuming is not going to get you anywhere. You've got to create action. Now, all this talk about the algorithm for people who aren't really into it can be a little bit confusing and a little bit daunting, but it really is simple. The social sequence that you need people on social media to go through is really just 3 steps. The first thing you've got to do is you've got to grab their attention. Once you grab their attention, you've got to get them to engage. Once you get them to engage, you then trigger them to take action. Now, you don't necessarily have to do all 3 of those in the one video. You can grab their attention with one, get them to engage in another, and trigger the action in the third. Or you can do attention and engagement in one, trigger them in a retargeting. There's no hard and fast rules. And that's why people get confused about social media, is because they want it to be like what they already know, but it's not. It's always changing. But that's your customer journey. You got to grab their attention, you got to engage them, and then you got to make them take an action. And what we're going to get into now is how do you do it? I'm going to share with you some key ways that you can do it. So the first thing you got to do, and Catherine, we're going to come back to you right now. This is your moment. The first thing you got to do once you've understood that the platform comes first, we're into stage 2, is you've got to grab attention. And this is where you focus on your customer. This is where we're at now. Thanks to Catherine, we're in there. So stage 2 is how do you grab their attention? The best way to grab people's attention. Now, Brendan, hold on to your hat here. I run a production company myself, and this is counterintuitive to my own business. The best way to grab a viewer's attention on social media is by being real, relevant, and relatable. Now, a lot of times for a lot of business owners, that means you don't have to go overboard with your production. That means you can just pick up your phone and talk to it and share your thought bubbles about your real life situation at the moment. And COVID was really good. Any posts on LinkedIn that I made about COVID back in March and April went gangbusters because there were so many other people feeling exactly the same stuff. What I was talking about wasn't only real to me and them, it was relevant to their situation and they could relate to it. So they connected to me. Humans don't like being alone. That's why lockdown was so bad in Melbourne. It's because so many people were locked in a bubble and not being able to move around their social circles. A lot of people get into small business, not because they love small business so much, but they love talking and interacting with all the different people who come to them for work. The local milk bar owner, he just loves being able to talk and watch kids grow up. That's what he does. So what you've got to do to be real, relevant, and relatable is you've got to give them something to believe in. You've got to give your customers and your viewers something that they can connect to. And this comes down to almost building mission statements. My mission statement is to, in my company Virable, is to save the internet from one bad video at a time. I'm sick of getting on Facebook and seeing bad videos that don't trigger me and videos that I don't enjoy. If we keep letting it go, social media is going to be just filled with really bad videos and no one's going to want to go there. And this whole opportunity will be dead. Now, so many people in video production worlds and people who get into video marketing, they love it. They're like, I now promise you, Creaky, I'm not going to make a bad video. I'm not going to add to the noise. So give them something to believe in what you do. The next thing you need to understand is once you've got their attention is how Facebook then judges them and uses them. And YouTube does this and Twitter does it. They all do it. It's called the filter bubble effect. Has anyone here heard of the filter bubble effect? The filter bubble effect came to prominence when Donald Trump won the presidency back in 2018. And what Donald Trump's team was able to work out, and there's a great documentary on Netflix called The Social Media Effect, I think it's called, is what they do is that Facebook groups like-minded people together. If you look at your social media feeds, you'll be in there with people who are at similar stages of their lives. They're having kids at the same time. They're getting married at the same time. They live in similar suburbs. They've got similar amounts of wealth and access to disposable cash. If you're in small business, you've probably got a lot of other small business people in your feed. And Facebook groups you all together. The key when it comes to viral videos is that if you can just find one person that your content resonates with in one big filter bubble and they share it, then it sets off a chain reaction. One person in a group of like-minded people, if you trigger their attention and get them to share it, then it's just going to go off like a ping pong ball in a room full of mouse traps in that filter bubble. And as long as you're getting them to view for 5 seconds, then all of a sudden you can retarget all those people in that filter bubble of a key demographic without them even having to follow you. So this, sure I understand. Siri does not understand. That was her. Sorry about that. So what we're looking at here is when you go through the algorithm and how it works and you trigger that action and then you think about how they bring everyone together, really, you don't need to make a video for everyone. You just need to make a video for someone who is surrounded by a whole lot of other people who are just like them. And it becomes a lot smaller task. It becomes a lot easier and a lot less daunting. So have a look through your customers. Have a look through the people who come into your businesses, are long-term customers. What do they like? What do they do for fun? What are their hobbies? What interests have they got? Because they're going to have people who are exactly the same as them in their feeds. And so that's the greatest way that you can grow your business online, or at least get exposure, is target the people you already know with stuff that's going to trigger them to share it. And we'll get into how to do that. So engagement is the key. The saying that I like to use is that if you can get them to share, you can make them care. Now, I was lucky enough back in 2014 to spend a day with James Cameron, who's the Academy Award-winning director of Titanic and Avatar. Now, I stayed a day on set with him, and while he was making movies and having meetings and all that sort of stuff, our conversation throughout the day was always about social media and this whole conversation and narrative around humans' attention spans are shrinking. So you need to keep your videos to 2 minutes and 17 seconds long, no longer, because they're evolving to the attention spans of goldfish, and that you'll no longer be able to engage them long enough. Yet I'm sitting in the room with a guy who just made $2 billion on a movie that ran for 3 hours. And so my conversation with James and his co-producer, John Landau, who I was probably more in awe of because he worked on the Star Wars movies, was about, oh, is this true and how do you do it? And James Cameron's answer to me was, hey, Jonathan, that's a really interesting question. If I was to give you the answer to the question at the end of the day, would you hang around? And I was like, mate, sure, 100%. Where do you want to meet? I'll come back, whatever. He goes, no. If I was to give you the answer to your question at the end of the day, would you hang around? I was like, yeah, of course I would. Absolutely. You want to meet down West Hollywood? What do you want to do? No. You're not getting it. That's the answer to the question. And that's it. If you can open what they call a story loop with a promise coming at the end, I'm going to solve your problem, but you have to do a little bit of work for me first. You have to watch first. Would you hang around? And that's what movies do. Movies continually open story loops that keeps the brain engaged, saying, hold on a minute, I want to see what happens to Luke Skywalker. I have to wait. You know, if in Star Wars, the original movie, and I'm sure a lot of you have watched Star Wars, if they just found the plans to the Death Star right at the start, wouldn't be 7 other Star Wars movies. You got to hang out and out. So you do that in your video. And the story framework that I share with you takes you through this. And it's called, you start your videos by talking about a problem that's driven by a desire in your audience, a desire to be solved. So Paul's business could be, are you running events, but people aren't, your branding's not hitting home, and not enough people identifying with your brand and what you do? Well, you need to print off some merch t-shirts. You need to have your staff, walking around in the brightest, coolest t-shirts there are, so that people connect with your brand better. So that's the start of his video. Are you having this problem? Then you've got to take them through a journey, and then you trigger the action. But we'll get to that in the 3-act play. So we're all cool. We're all up to speed there. I know we're running a little bit long, but I want to make sure that you get all this value. Is that okay? Yeah. All good? All understanding? Thumbs up? Yeah, perfect. Right. So once you've been real relevant and relatable, and you understand that your key target is to get them to share, because sharing is the #1 ranked action on any social media algorithm. The reason why YouTube survived and became the giant that it is compared to all the other video platforms that popped at the time is that when YouTube launched, they had 15 different ways that you could share a video. The other platforms didn't have any. So YouTube popped because people could share what they were posting. YouTube would allow people to share their stuff. And then they started to get all this data and it just exploded. That was the secret. So how do you get people to share or care about your content? Well, it comes down to a transition that you have to do and you have to make in your viewer's brain. Now, there's one thing that humans do for 30% of the time while they're awake. 30% of your time, whether you're at work, whether you're at the gym, whether you're eating dinner, whether you're walking the dog, what are you doing for 30% of your time while you're just wandering around this world? Anyone going to have a guess? Nah, Catherine's gone gun shy.
Think.
Think. Close. Close. Really close.
Speak.
Speak. No.
See.
See. No. What's your brain doing? Come on, Carrie. I know you got this one.
Imagining.
Yeah. Who said that?
Laura.
Laura.
Yeah.
Laura. Really close. 30% of your time while you're awake, your brain is daydreaming. Right? Daydreaming. When you're asleep, it's just real dreaming. Daydream. And what is daydreaming exactly? Daydreaming is the brain telling itself stories. The brain is the most selfish organ in the human body. Anyone know what happens when you drown? Like biologically in your body, what happens to your body when you start drowning? When you start to drown, and this is how selfish the human brain is. When you start to drown, the brain will actually begin to steal oxygen from all the other organs, even though it knows that it's signing its own death certificate, just so it can die last. It will steal what's called O4 oxygen from your liver. It'll steal oxygen from your kidneys, just so it can die last. That's how powerful and selfish the brain is. Now, what we know from people who are spending 30% of their time walking around daydreaming is that by daydreaming, the brain loves stories. Now, there's a way that you can stop the brain from daydreaming. And it's because it's really selfish. You can stop a human brain from daydreaming by doing the work for it. The brain will take any opportunity to conserve energy, to not have to do any work, to save calories, to relax and just enjoy what it loves. If you can tell the brain stories, it will stop daydreaming and it will build barriers that block out distractions. Now, if you're a business on social media and I hand you the ability to block out distractions so that people are focused just on your message, how much would you pay me? A lot of money. I'm giving it to you for free right here. Storytelling is the secret to having your brain focused. Now, who here's got kids? Because I'm going to prove this point to you. Your kids. Now, Laura, your kids just finished year 11, so you might have to think back a few years ago. Think back to when your kids were 7 and 8, 9, 10. I've got a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. They still do it. And you walk through the lounge room on a Saturday morning and they're watching television and you say, hey, you got to get ready for sport. We're leaving in half an hour. Go get dressed. Go get your hockey gear on. Go get your football gear on, whatever it is. And you go have a shower and you can walk back out in your lounge room and your kids are still sitting there and you stand there for what seems like a minute, but it's probably only about 10 seconds. And you raise your voice and you go, hey, I told you to go get ready. You haven't moved in 10 minutes. And they get this shocked look on their face and they look at you as if you've gone from 0 to 100 in a split second. Why are you yelling at me? I didn't hear you. They didn't hear you the first time because the brain was locked into a story that they were watching on the television or their iPads. They didn't hear you. So you can no longer growl at your kids when they don't listen to you while they're watching a device because the brain has actually blocked you out. You're simply a distraction at the time. Now, when you start telling the brain a story and stop it from daydreaming, a couple of things happen. You start transferring a thinking brain into a feeling brain. Who here has ever cried at the movies? Me. If a movie can make you cry, a video can make you share. Have you ever asked yourself, why do you cry at the movies? They're just actors. They didn't actually die. And in fact, they probably got paid millions and millions of dollars to not die in front of you, but pretend to die. But your brain isn't in that space. It's not thinking about the reality. It's feeling what's being transferred to it. Now, what we also know is that thinking brains don't buy. Purchasing, buying is all an emotional-based decision-making process. So you have to get people feeling. Like my wife, when she goes to shopping town, oh my God, she's so emotional. Like she's just spending everything. All right? Catherine likes that. You can now say, oh, look, I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry, honey. I just got really emotional out there. I couldn't stop myself. My wife uses that all the time. She's watched too many of my keynotes and she gets away with it. So what happens is you transfer the thinking brain to a feeling brain and you're getting people closer to buying in emotionally. And when you get them closer to buying in emotionally, you're getting closer to them buying in reality. So you've got to do that transition. The way you do that transition is through stories. You've got to get them to be feeling about your business. If there's a problem that we spoke about and it's causing pain for people, you've got to squeeze that pain a little bit. You've got to make them feel it through the video. You know, my business got shuttered because of COVID, and now I don't know how I'm going to be paying the bills. The government's not letting me operate. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's really daunting. It keeps me awake at night. These are all things that are going to have your audience feeling what you're feeling. And we get back to that real, relevant, and relatable. So all of a sudden, you're doing it in a story, you're transitioning them into a space to buy. So you always got to stay humanized. So stay human. A lot of businesses, when they get videos made, particularly corporate videos, they turn into these robotic sort of, hey, welcome to the greatest company in the world. And they start talking stats and blah, blah, blah. It don't work. It doesn't work on social media. It might work in a boardroom meeting when people just want to get the information. But on social media, you got to tell a story and be more romantic about it. There's two other things that telling a story does to your customer once you nail it. A, it allows you to build trust faster because you're human. So you build trust really quick. That means you're going to get them quicker to the buying decision. They're going, I'm going to go with you because you made me feel like I can trust you. The second thing that storytelling does, and it gets into a good friend of mine by the name of Tanzil Ali, who's a 4-time Australian memory champion and a 1-time world memory champion. Now, Tanzil, when I first met him, had just memorized 2 Yellow Pages phone books. That's how he became world memory champion. And you could open any page of the phone book, read 3 businesses in a row, and he'd finish the page. It was the greatest party trick ever. The problem is his party trick's dying now because no one has phone books anymore. It's all online and it's not the same order. So his best party trick gone. But I was fascinated with Tanzil and how did he remember all these phone books? And he said, oh, it took me 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? Like just sitting there, just flicking through every page and remembering it? He goes, no, not at all. He said, that would be too hard. The brain doesn't have enough gigabytes in it to remember all that. So what Tanzil actually did is when he memorized the phone books, is he used the power of the brain. He told his brain a story using the names of the businesses as the triggers. And so the phone books for him was just a movie script. And when people opened the page and named the 3 businesses, you were just fast forwarding Tanzil to the scene of the movie that he'd remembered. And then he could just recite the rest of the movie. It was the power of story. So if you start using stories in your videos and in your marketing, you're going to become more memorable, and you're also going to create more feeling in your viewers, which gets them closer to buying. Now, probably the most powerful storytelling framework in the world, which accounts for about 80% of every Hollywood movie, is known as the hero's journey. Anyone here know about the hero's journey? Yeah, it's pretty widely spread on the internet. My opinion on the hero's journey is that even after 20 years in TV and spending a number of years on movie sets around the world, is that the hero's journey is actually really hard to do from your mobile phone. It's really hard to do if you don't have the experience. It's really hard to do if you don't have the skills of editing and storytelling and the time it takes to put together a good storyboard and a production. Now, for a lot of small business owners, you don't need to be spending any more time on video. You need something that's viable for your business. You need a marketing tool that you can use that gets you going, gets you done, and then you can get on with your daily business with the video still out there working for you. So the 7 elements of the hero's journey, and if you could write these down as I write them out, they're important to know about, but I wouldn't exactly be aiming to be doing them. I'd be going to someone like Brendan to get you to build videos like that. And look, highly produced commercial videos still have a place. They really do. They have a power and a place. But I'm talking about how can you get your business out in front of your customers in the next 3 months every day without it costing you any extra money, but still bringing in business. So these are the elements that you need to think about. And then I want you to go and search the hero's journey online. You'll find it. Every hero or every story needs a hero or a guide. So you need to have a hero or a guide in your story, someone that the audience can identify with. Now, the biggest problem that a lot of people deal with is that they make themselves the hero because they love their business so much. Understand this, you are never the hero. Your product can be the hero and you can be the guide, but usually the best campaigns work if your customer's the hero. So think about your customer and taking them on the next step, which is the journey. You've got to take them on a journey. Now, the reason you have to take them on a journey is twofold. By taking a customer on a journey, or your hero in the story on a journey, is it's telling the brain that there's a story coming, which shuts down the thinking brain and brings the feeling brain, puts up the distractions. Now, the brain will identify this within about 5 to 8 seconds of whether you're telling them a story or not. That process starts. And you take them on a journey. You don't just give them the solution straight away. You just don't say, we're the best promotional products business in the eastern suburbs. Right? Don't go anywhere else. Or I'm the greatest celebrant in the eastern suburbs. Here's my price. This is what I do. You got to sell them the journey of it. You know, if you've got someone who wants to get their story sorted before it's too late, we've got this system and we take you through this journey and we transform the whole scenario to get you ready for the time when, most people don't want to think about it. It's a hard one, that one. Sorry, Kerry, I did a really bad job at that. I'll work with you one-on-one after if you want. That was not a hard one. Now, every story also needs a villain. Now, the villain that I really like to use in my business is time. A villain doesn't have to be a person. The villain is a problem. Now, I use time because a lot of the people that I work with, they want to do video marketing and they want to use video in their business, but they always say the first excuse they always come up with is, I don't have enough time. Because they're thinking about making videos as good as Brendan does. They're thinking that they've got to have perfection over progress. So I always use time as my villain. That works the best for me. Then there's got to be adversity. So you've got to have a challenge. If you're a real estate agent, it can be, hey, I've got 12 open. You could start your video at the start of the day in Instagram stories or any of those little bubbles at the top where you can just add all day as you go. I've got 12 open for inspections today. I've never done 12 open for inspections before. I've got to travel over 50 kilometers between them all. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it on time. All of a sudden, villain is time. And then throughout the day, throughout the journey, you can just keep adding to that story and say, oh, I've made it to 3. Oh my God, now I've got 15 minutes to make it to the next one. Oh, but there's a garbage truck in the way, or the traffic lights are out, or my car needs petrol, or I need to stop and get food. Like, so you got all these challenges. And then by the time you get to the end of the day, you can give your lesson. So what's the lesson? Now, your stories can have many things. Success or failure at the end doesn't really matter. Most people focus on success, but I'm telling you right now, sometimes it's good to fail in your story because it makes you more human. What's really key is the lesson. So what lesson is your story delivering that's relevant to your audience? The lesson is the key. The brain will continue to come back and want to come back to your videos if you're continually sharing them lessons. And if you're sharing lessons to your customers that helps them get over problems driven by desires, then they will continually come back to you and trust you. You'll become the go-to. It's how thought leaders go from being really good at their topic to becoming thought leaders, is that they just continually solve problems for people. Sometimes it gets masked in the term of value, but it's actually solving problems. So I've got the 3-act play up on the screen and I'll put it in the chat. Now the 3-act play, let me copy this, hold on. Having real tech issues today. Maybe I need to get my 11-year-old who's sitting in the other room happily missing school at the moment.
Would you like me to share that for you, Jonathan?
Can you see? You can't. Oh, they'll have to log in on an email to get that one. I really wish I could show my screen. But anyway, the 3-act play was created by Aristotle. So we all know who Aristotle was, the great Greek philosopher. And this is how far back my research went for 5 years. Aristotle was interested in many things, but one of the things he became really interested in is, why do some performances on stage attract a lot of people and hold them there for a lot longer and keep the king or the emperors happy compared to others that don't? What are the ones that are doing really well that makes them successful? And what he wrote out in the end was what's called the 3-act play. Now, the 3-act play really is the basis of TikTok. It's the basis of longer YouTube videos. It's the basis of any videos that go viral usually sit within the 3-act play. And it's these 3 steps. Act 1, start by identifying a problem driven by a desire. I mentioned it before. So what are the problems that your business solves? And this is how you'll come up with endless creative ideas for content, just going through this simple framework. Start by identifying a problem driven by a desire. Act 2, you have to move through a hurdle or a challenge. You never simply go to the answers. You need to make it a journey. Move through a hurdle or a challenge. Make it a journey. Now it's in Act 2 where you have to get a little bit ruthless, in the sense that you have to make the videos that perform the best, make the audience feel the most. So if it's a happy video, you've got to make people feel really happy. If it's a video with a problem and a pain, you have to get them to feel the pain. Now you'll be able to tell, if you get people in your core audience to look at your video, if they start feeling stuff here, it's just to the right of your left pec muscle. This is where people feel. So if they start focusing on this area while they're watching your video, if they get to the end and they go, yeah, nothing, then you've got to go back and work on Act 2. But if they go, oh man, yeah, you really gave me a bit of heartburn or a little bit of pressure, then you know you're on the money. When you get to Act 3, you end your story with success or failure. Success or failure doesn't matter. What matters is the lesson. What is the lesson? The lesson is, for the real estate agent, you know what? I'm never booking 12 open for inspections ever again. I've got to learn to say no and limit myself to 10, because I let those last 2 people down and I lost those listings. You know, or get a driver, or map out the time frame so that you can make it better, be better organized. So really think about that lesson. So we'll go through it again. Act 1, identify a problem driven by desire. So what's a common problem that your audience has? You got to move them through a hurdle or a challenge. For someone like Paul, it could be, you know what? There's a lot of promotional companies out there, but so many of them are fly-by-nighters and really poor quality. These are the checks and the balances and the struggles that we went through. How long have you been running your business for, Paul? Hold up your hand. Muted. Hold up your hands. How many? 30 years. Imagine the struggle that Paul's gone through to ensure the quality of his produce over 30 years. Right? Problem by desire. Everyone wants the cheapest stuff, but you know what? With the cheapest stuff comes the crap. Paul, for 30 years, we've been able to find the best quality stuff at the best price. And you're really going to get the response that you're really going to get the feedback that you need that represents your brand. And the lesson in that is just don't go cheap, because if you go cheap, it can reflect badly on your brand. If you hand out a whole lot of free t-shirts that fall apart after the first wash, or leak colors that wreck other clothes that might be higher quality, the customer's not going to be thinking really well of your brand. If you hand out glasses with your logo printed on it and it ends up giving people headaches, they're not going to think great of your brand. So that's the struggle that someone like Paul should target, and then give the lesson at the end that here are the things that can go wrong, and here are the things that you need to get right. So let's just recap. I know that I spoke a lot, and I've probably spoken a lot longer than I'd planned, but sometimes I just love giving the value. So always look to help out the platform host. Okay, remember back to the start of the talk, always look to help out the platforms. Next, you got to grab your customers' attention by being real, relevant, and relatable. And sometimes that means just picking up your phone and talking to them from the front seat of your car while you're parked and out of gear and the car's turned off. But it can be that rough and ready. If you've got a phone from an iPhone X onwards, and I know there might be some Android users, so I think it's like a Samsung 9. iPhone X or Samsung 9 onwards, you have more than enough to get this done. You don't have to worry about the technical gear. All you have to worry about is your stories and your frameworks. That's where the greatest growth is going to come for your business. Use stories to trigger the brain to block out distractions. Use the 3-act play template that I've just sent you. It works. It's simple and it works, and you can just stick it on the back of your phone and off you go. That buys you the time to transfer the thinking brain into a feeling brain. Okay, that's what you're trying to do. You've got to make that transfer. You'll never get a purchase out of a thinking brain, because the thinking brain will always convince them that they don't need it. Remember that thing where you go, oh, gee, I really want a new set of lights for my studio. This is what I go through all the time. And then my thinking brain goes, well, no, your lights are pretty good at the moment. You don't need new ones, but I really want those new ones. And then the thinking brain comes in and goes, nah, you don't need them. Save your money. Happens all the time. It's the buyer journey. Once you can get them to care about what you're talking about, then they'll share it in that filter bubble. And you get that chain reaction, and then you spread. It may take 3 videos. It may take 5 videos, but you're not going to get the perfect video straight up. So you got to get your bad ones out of the way before you get to the good ones that bring you business. Go back and have a look at the first drawing you ever did with texters at school. It's nowhere near as good as the last drawing you did with texters at school. You got better over time. Video is the same. Work on it. And as a result, they'll push their friends closer to the ready to buy in stage. And that's the whole aim of it. So that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very, very much, Jonathan.